The Hotel, written by Michael Pennington, voiced by Michael Pennington. When I'd pulled into the hotel around 1 a.m., I was pleased to find some rooms were available. It was a rainy night, and I went to see an ex-girlfriend earlier in the day. The drive had been about 4 hours, and I'd spent about 4 hours with her, but I needed to get back to my house. I'd left her house at around midnight and found that I was just simply too exhausted to keep driving, so I decided to just get some rest and head out in the morning. I wasn't too pleased about paying $60 for a few hours of sleep, but staying at the X's was out of the question, and I didn't feel like sleeping in my car. I checked in and made my way up to my room. It was a small hotel, but it looked cozy, and the lobby had a nice fireplace. The room wasn't bad either, a little more upscale than you'd expect for the money. Exhausted, I quickly undressed and went to sleep. I was out in about 10 minutes, but sleep didn't last long. I woke to a knock on my door. The clock read 2 a.m. I put on my shirt and went for the door, wondering who the heck this could be. Before I answered, though, I kind of thought about it. This was a lone hotel in the middle of nowhere in a small town, and though it was well kept, it was still kind of odd. "Who is it?" I hollered. There was no answer. I just went back to bed, not thinking much of it. Somebody must have had the wrong room or something. 30 minutes later, I was again woke by the same knock. This time I was mad, and there would be no asking who it was. I swung the door open, ready to lay into somebody. Nobody was there, nor was anybody in the hallway. "If you're playing games, I'm the wrong dude to fuck with," I hollered down the hall that was still lit. I waited, not expecting a reply, and I didn't get one. But then the hallway lights turned off, and this gave me goosebumps. It was time to call downstairs. I closed and locked the door and dialed the number to the front desk. No answer. I decided to kill about 20 minutes to see if I could catch this person red-handed. So I grabbed my phone and went to sit by the door. After about 10 minutes on YouTube, listening to some old Mr. Nightmare videos, I heard the knock again. I hopped up and flung the door open to catch a glimpse of a tall figure that just walked away out of my sight. I was still fully in my room. I quickly stepped out into the hall. Only about 3 feet away, this person immediately turned around and came straight at me. I didn't really have time to be scared, even as scared looking as this person was. I was already in a struggle. The attacker wore a gray woman's wig, giving the appearance of an older lady. She had an oversized nightgown on, and it was the kind my grandmother wore. But I could tell she was younger by her skin texture. She had makeup on that would resemble that of a much older woman, bright red lipstick and lots of blue eyeshadow. Her wig was disturbing, and her face was that of nightmares. And she was tall, about 3 inches taller than me, and I'm 5'9". She backed me up against the wall, her eyes huge like a crazed person. It was at that point I realized she had a butcher knife in her right hand, but I had my hand locked on her wrist. "Hey, what the hell?" I yelled, looking at her as if she were crazy. She didn't say anything as we struggled. The knife was over my head thanks to her height and her long arms. She was moaning, almost fake crying. It was weird, and at this point I was scared and even intimidated by just how bizarre this was. Not to mention she was trying to kill me. As she was beginning to surprise me with her strength too, my hand slipped from her wrist, and she brought the knife down hard. It stuck in the wall just above my head. She kicked me in the groin, and I went down in excruciating pain. She went for the knife that was embedded in the wall, and I managed to tackle her to the floor by clenching her legs together. On top of her now, though I was still in a momentous amount of pain, I brought down a few serious blows to the head, knocking her out. Catching my breath, I rolled over beside her on my back, still in disbelief. Big mistake. She rolled on top of me again to flail her arms down with blows, screaming and grunting. I was able to overpower her even from the bottom, and again I assumed the top position on her. This time I put even more power into my punches, caving in the right side of her cheek as her screams silenced. I caught my breath. Damn it, man. Jesus Christ, you crazy bitch. Straddling her, I finally stood up. Then something hit me. This was the owner of the hotel that had checked me in. I should have noticed it earlier from her sheer height. She was dressed up as a scary old hag, lurking the hallways, obviously trying to kill somebody. I looked down at her in shock. What in the actual fuck? I whispered, visibly shaken. I gotta get out of here. Then she shot up from her back and grabbed my ankles, her eyes like a maniac. My heart skipped and I jumped back, not expecting that. I could only stare at her in disbelief as she struggled to get me down on the floor. She had absorbed 2 brutal blows and was back for more. I reared my leg back and kicked her in the face. Her head bounced off the carpeted hallway, and she lay motionless. I hastily got my jeans, wallet, and got the hell out of Dodge. As I made it to the end of the hallway, I heard her set up again. And it wasn't a struggle for her. She sat straight up without using her hands for leverage. It's the kind of shit you see in the horror movies. Holy shit, I said, making a run for the door. She cackled and hollered through the halls, giving chase. I got in my car and locked the door, turned on the ignition and stepped on the gas. The woman jumped on my windshield and beginning to stab the glass as I drove. At the stop sign that led back onto the highway, I took a gnarly turn, slinging her off. I watched her fly in the ditch and roll a few feet before again setting up. Needless to say, I called the police right there as I drove, and I drove all the way home, happy to be out the $60 if it meant I was still alive. This woman was disturbed and seemingly possessed, because nobody has that ability to absorb so much punishment, and especially a woman. I found out a week later that 2 people had turned up missing in the last year shortly after checking into that hotel. They were both females. The last I heard, the woman was being tried for murder and assault with a deadly weapon on me. I can't stop thinking about what would have happened had I not locked the door, or why she couldn't get in since she was the owner of the hotel. Needless to say, you can bet that I'll never stay at a one-horse hotel again.